Welcome. It's another episode of Talking Away The Taboo. I'm Dr. Aimee Baron, and I am the founder and executive director of I Was Supposed to Have a Baby. And I am thrilled tonight to be bringing on Shoshana Greenwald. Shoshana is, here she is. Shoshana is an absolutely phenomenal person, and she is going to be sharing her story publicly for the first time tonight. Okay, I'm trying to grab her. Oh, here she is. See, technology does work sometimes, right, Shoshana?
Yep, I made it.
You made it, I made it. It doesn't always work, but we got lucky tonight. We got lucky.
Sure.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. First of all, tell people who you are, give them just a little bit of a background, who you are, where you come from, a little bit about your family, a little bit about your life. Just give us a little bit of all of the rest of the stuff before we get to the fertility stuff.
Okay. My name is Shoshana. Some people call me Shoshana Baya, which I love, Greenwald. I live in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, which is like a really great place. I work for Micah Philanthropies, which is a foundation that does really amazing things in the Jewish community. I'm very honored to be working there. I also have a museum background. So I've worked at several museums, Jewish, not Jewish. On social media, I try to do a lot of advocacy. So it looks like fighting against anti-Semitism. I also try to address race in the Jewish community to the degree that I can, since it's not my lived experience. And I'm on the leadership team for the Orthodox Leadership Project, which is like really important part of my life. So
I was going to say that's one piece you and I actually did not talk about.
Right.
I was in the first cohort of the Orthodox Leadership Project. Give people give them a minute about that, just so they can know a little bit about it.
Oh, it's so incredible. The Orthodox Leadership Project is a group of women who we have different cohorts, and we build community, and we have a curriculum where we build leadership skills and networks and work on things like fundraising for people who want to build a nonprofit maybe, or who have any vision for impact. And we're at this really incredible stage where we've received a really generous grant from the Waldorf Foundation to hire strategic planners. So we're doing some strategic planning. So
amazing.
Not where I was supposed to have a baby is up to, but we're hoping to do really wonderful things.
You do wonderful things already. But okay, now let's move into this story. And what I first want to ask you is, this is the first time you're talking about this publicly. And so what I really want to try to understand, and I want you to share with other people, is number one, why haven't you shared already? And number two, why now? And what is it about this moment in time that makes it feel right for you, makes it feel okay for you?
That's a great question. And Aimee, I think I don't know if everyone here knows that I'm really a very open person. I share about a lot of things. I really like to share because anything I can normalize, I think just like makes things better for everybody. So something that I've shared about that could be stigmatized is I had postpartum depression, like things like that I'm very open about. So, but no, I have not ever shared publicly about going through secondary infertility. I'll tell you why I haven't. I would say there are two major reasons. One is because I never sat down with my children and said, hello, did you know that you actually didn't come so easy? I had to really fight for you. I don't know why. What, like, should that be a secret? No. At this point, the age that my daughters are, we've discussed things like PCOS. They know that I have it. And I've seen that what I can do is I can very easily share what is age appropriate as they get older. I am allergic to secrets and
Oh my
the
gosh.
shame.
I love the way you just described that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Go ahead. Keep going.
And because secrets come with shame, right? So I carried this around with me.
I need
I
to write that
want
down. Keep going. I need to write that down. Keep going.
I wanted to share this with them because I didn't want to keep something so big from them, but I also didn't want to sit them down and say, like, I have to reveal this thing to you. So instead of coming up with a cohesive strategy, what I did was just, as I said, like, I slowly shared whatever part was like up to their development. So that was one part of it, was how my kids would feel and do they get a say in people knowing. And I've really spoken to friends about that and received many different answers. And then the other major part is that I have imposter syndrome when it comes to secondary infertility, or I would say when it comes to infertility. And part of that is because I did not have primary infertility. I got pregnant with my son immediately. And as I alluded to in the post I wrote, I was really feeling very ambivalent about that. And I think if I had the community and resources I had now, I think things might have been a little different. But I think that's why we're speaking tonight, because so much of what I went through so many years ago were things that I went through because I was supposed to have a baby. I didn't have that community and I didn't have those resources. I was one of the first of my friends to get married. I was one of the first of my friends to have a baby. And as wonderful as that is, and it is wonderful, it's very hard to do in isolation. And infertility really sneaked up on me.
Okay. I mean, I'm so grateful that you shared that, because it is, framing of your story, this and what we're going to be talking tonight about secondary infertility. The framing is important. It's important for people to understand the lens. And there are definitely people in the world who deal with and struggle with primary infertility and secondary infertility. But there are those of us, and I'm counting myself as one of them. I did not struggle to have my first. I also had my first very quickly. I didn't get married so young, but I also had my first very quickly. It was only when we were trying to have our second that was when our trouble started. So this is not about me. So let's get back to you and tell us. So walk us through. I remember, if I remember correctly, you were 19 when you got married.
20.
And 20, sorry. Okay, I got it. I'm a year off. You were 20 when you got married and you had your son
21.
21, like immediately.
Immediately.
And
Yeah.
and with all of the mixed emotions that you described. Okay, and then what? So tell us then, pick up the story from there.
Okay. So my husband needed to have medical treatment we were waiting until we waited until my son was born for him to start the medical treatment. And while he was doing that, it was a year long, I couldn't get pregnant. And what happened was, and tell me if I'm going off on a tangent or anything, but the ambivalence I felt before and while I was pregnant with my first had really changed so much. And although, as I said, I did suffer from postpartum depression, I bonded with my son so quickly. Like, thank God. I was suffering, but I adored him and I wanted more. And I felt like now I know how to be a mother and this is going to be so much better. And I was sure that the second that I would be allowed to become pregnant, I would become pregnant. I was sure. And I do want to mention that I had this idea before I got married because my mother, my mother was this way. Unfortunately, my mother suffered a lot of miscarriages, but she would always get pregnant very quickly, and I assumed I was the same way, and then I was with my first.
Right. Right. I mean, which is logical. I mean, there's so many things that are genetically linked. And so it's a logical assumption to make. Absolutely.
Yeah. So here I am. I'm young. 23. I already have a child. And this time I feel excited and I feel ready to have a child. And I also feel sure that it's going to happen very soon. And it didn't happen. And it didn't happen in such a strange way, right? Because, I mean, am I allowed to talk about periods on here?
Definitely.
Okay.
You can pretty much talk about anything. There's nothing off limits.
Okay. So the first month I was late. So I thought, okay, I'm pregnant. All right, that makes sense. And then I wasn't. And I kept taking tests and I wasn't pregnant. And then the next month that happened again. I would finally get my period. No, I wasn't pregnant. And then it would continue again. And it was very confusing and very upsetting. And I felt very, very alone in this. I didn't know what to do, or I didn't know who to talk to about this. And something else that I alluded to in one of my posts is that everything had been so quick for me. And in so many ways, I'm so fortunate. My grandmother told me that I was going out with my husband before
Wow.
I was dating. Like I was not looking to get married. I was in Stern, and my grandmother said, I gave a boy your number and you're going to go out with him.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm not looking to get married, Bubby. But then I went out with him. And 20 years later, here we are.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Everything was so quick.
Right.
I was never single. And then as soon as I was married, I was pregnant. So I just didn't know. I didn't know what was happening. And also when you're a child, everything is so linear, right? Like when you graduate 8th grade, then you go to high school. Like it's mapped out for you. And all of a sudden I felt very non-grounded. Like I didn't know what to do or where to go or what was happening. And it was very frightening.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. And I think that there's a lot in even look, the name of our organization. I was supposed to. You thought you were going to because that's the way everything always had been. So there was no reason to think otherwise. Like it's, and genetically you thought everything was going to be fine. There was no reason to think otherwise. Um, okay, so then what happened?
I read a women's magazine that I saw somewhere. And there was an article describing PCOS. And I thought, oh my God, this is what I have. And then I did something that I always advise people not to do.
I'm waiting.
Which is I asked my gynecologist to treat it. And I'm not saying don't go to your gynecologist to treat PCOS, but I'm saying don't go to your gynecologist to treat infertility.
Right. Right. Okay. So walk us through, you figure out, like, thank God for Glamour magazine or whatever it was, like you figure it out, or you think you figure it out. The OB confirms it, or whatever the OB does. I know that there were many steps between that and what happened with your daughters. So bring us through the steps of, like, where were you emotionally? How did you take those steps to get to a place where you were heading into fertility treatments? What was that process like? And just like grappling with it.
I was a disaster, and I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why I was so upset. I didn't understand why. Yeah, I carried this pain with me everywhere all the time, and it didn't make sense to me because I had a child and I was young and I was healthy, and I felt a sense of shame. I'm not grateful for what I have because I do have a healthy child, and how many women don't, right?
Right.
How many people who want children don't? And here I have a child and I'm miserable. And every time I would see someone with a bump, I would get a pang. And I will tell you that lasted many, many, many years. After I was done having children, I still would sometimes feel that. Now, thank God I don't. And I would be happy for whoever it was. Like, I'm sure everyone here understands the mixed
Absolutely.
feelings, but I felt a pang. And yeah. I went to the gynecologist for a couple of months, and it really wasn't helping. And then I confided in my bubby again.
Baruch Hashem. Thank God for Bubby.
And she said, oh, my grandparents lived in Los Angeles for many years, so they have like a whole network there. So she knows somebody there. She knows a prominent doctor there, and she's going to ask him. And she called him in LA, and then he gave her the name and number of a reproductive endocrinologist. And I didn't know what that was, right? Like it was such a different time. Like, there was the internet, but it was totally different.
Yep.
So I called that. It was Columbia. I got treated at Columbia. I made an appointment with the doctor. He was a specialist, and he confirmed my diagnosis. And I think I did like one round of, I've like blocked so much of it out,
Yep.
Aimee, but I did like one round of something very quickly. He said, we should just do IVF very quickly, in my opinion. So I did all of it. I did like the morning monitorings, and I took the train to Columbus Circle all the time. And there was a Barnes and Noble there then, and I would get myself treats and like all of that.
Yep.
So yeah.
And okay, so now you're in the IVF world, and I could just, I mean, the purpose of this discussion that you and I are having today is not to talk about the nitty-gritties of your fertility treatment. It's to really talk about the emotions of secondary infertility and how those pieces affected you, and how they affect other people. And so give us the end of the story. Your twins were born when?
My first round.
Okay.
Thank God.
Thank God. Thank God. And so did you feel a sense of relief? Did you feel like, okay, right, we just did this thing, and like everything's good now, and so I'm good, and now I can, like, I'll take care of them, and then we'll think about more kids later on at some point. Like, where was your head at?
Well, the entire time I was pregnant, I was terrified of having twins, because the way I had mothered my son was very, they don't do, this is like out of vogue now, but it was called attachment parenting. Yep. It's similar in some ways to gentle parenting, but, like I breastfed him, and like I would take him with me places, and I thought, oh my God, I can't do that. So when I was pregnant, it was like one long freak out. And also, I wanted to prepare myself in case I would suffer from postpartum depression again. So that was a big part. I was due in the winter. At that time, I lived up like in a townhouse so there were stairs, and I thought I need to get out every day. So it was a lot of strategizing and managing my emotions. Thank God I didn't have postpartum depression. I will say, I still feel shame about this, but I felt so stupid. I felt like why did I rush into this? Why didn't I just give myself time? Like I would have gotten pregnant at some point. Like, why did I need to rush myself? And and my twins know this, so I'm okay saying this part. I never wanted twins. There's some people who are like, I always dreamed of having twins. I adore my twins. I adore them, but I never, ever, ever wanted twins. In fact, when I was pregnant with my sister-in-law was pregnant with twins, and I remember the sentence that came into my head when she told me was, I'm so glad I didn't say this in my head, was, I'm so glad it's you and not me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there was a lot of like I bonded with them and I was happy, but I thought it was very immature of me that I rushed into it. I thought I shouldn't have done that, but I also I don't want it to sound like I regretted anything, but I felt like I had been like a headstrong, impatient child. And I also very much allowed myself to be like, okay, you know what? Like, we can be done. Like, we have, 3 children. Thank God they're healthy. Like, we're done. And I felt that way until I didn't.
Right. And so talk about that. Give us a little more in a window into that piece of your life.
Okay, so the first few years of having 3 kids, 3 little kids, was very hard. And then when they hit 2, it got easier. When it was at their preschool graduation, and I thought, I have no more little children, and I felt like shriveled up and dry. And I just had this like, I was still feeling those pangs, I should say, like when I would see someone else who was pregnant, and it's so illogical, because I had been pregnant, but I was making an assumption that no one else had trouble getting pregnant. It was just me, right? And all of a sudden, I very intensely wanted one more child, and my overwhelming feeling was being extremely selfish and greedy. And how dare I? Because I already have 3 healthy children, and I'm never happy. Like, nothing is enough for me, and I carried a lot of guilt about it.
And so what enabled you to push back past that guilt and actually then, go after, so to speak, trying to have another child?
That's a good question.
You don't have to have an answer for it.
I think I just wanted another, like, I didn't feel done. I just wanted another child so badly. And so I just lived with that feeling and then I had this like other feeling that was illogical, that probably isn't relevant to this conversation, so I shouldn't have brought it up, but basically that like I probably used up all my good genes, and like the next baby would be like a dud. That was my fantasy.
Okay, so no, meaning that no, it's not irrelevant. It is absolutely relevant, because I think that, there's a lot of, in the fertility space, you can call it luck, you can call it mazel, you can call it, you know, the gods were smiling down, like, you can call it whatever you want, but there is there is this idea of, when you do all the right things and it actually works, as opposed to, you doing all the right things and then it doesn't work. So there is this sense of luck, absolutely, and I know I mean, this is what I'm hearing you say now. You felt lucky that everything had gone off, even though there was pain and there was struggle, that there it was relatively minor comparatively. And so, I mean, I'm hearing you say that you just felt like you're playing with house money, and like, why gamble again? And
Exactly.
yet the need and the desire was there. And so you did gamble again.
I did. I did. Yeah. We had frozen embryos and we had been paying for their storage. And this time I told the doctor I only wanted to implant one, did not want two sets of twins. And everyone told me that a frozen embryo transfer is really easy. And it is relatively compared to IVF, especially like the retrieval part. I remember finding really, really hard. But it was hard for me. It was hard. Physically it was difficult, and emotionally, hormonally, and like I was doing this while I was taking care of 3 other children and harboring these feelings of like selfishness. So it was a lot, but thank God again, it was successful, and I had my 4th child, and like, thank God.
Thank God. And look, the conversation that we're having today is not the, like, the story ends badly. Like, that's not the conversation that we're having today. And because we do tell a lot of stories here on I Was Supposed to Have a Baby, we do tell a lot of stories that have difficult endings or unknown endings. We know what your ending is. Your ending is you have 4 beautiful, healthy children. And yet you still felt that it was important to reach out and to talk about this because of these feelings that you went through during this process, to normalize it and to let people know, like, secondary infertility is a whole different situation. And so many people have exactly those same feelings that you described, in that, like, how can I be doing this because I'm taking time away from my child? I'm selfish because I already have everything I need. I have more than what other people have. And why do I want more? Why am I trying to, you know, grasp onto something that might be out of reach when I should just be grateful for what I have? There's a lot here. There's a lot here. And so I'll sort of ask you, in the way of closing here, what do you say to people who are in this situation? What do you recommend to them in terms of the way of dealing and managing those emotions? I mean, look, you sat with them for a long time. You got your happy ending, but these are still emotions that are swirling within you. How do you what would you say to people?
I think what I would say to people is what I say to myself when I'm experiencing feelings of, like the feelings you just described, which is not to reject them, not to say, you're being so stupid, like, it's okay to want more children. That doesn't work. To name, I would always say to name. Anything you can name, you make it finite. It's not you, it's you have an emotion. So naming things is so important.
I love that. I love that.
It's something I use all the time. So you create that separation and you recognize that this is how you're feeling. And hopefully you have a friend or someone, or you can hear me say now that you don't have to justify wanting a child, and you don't have to justify having your feelings. And
Hold on. Shoshana, your audio cut out for a second. 1 second. Uh-oh. I hope we didn't lose her. I hope we didn't lose her. Can everybody still hear me? If you can hear me, someone thumbs up. Oh, she's back. You're
I'm
back.
so sorry. Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. Okay, just go back again and say you were saying you don't have to justify your feelings. Give us that piece again.
You can you can know that you're allowed to have these feelings even if someone is going through, and there are people who have less or who are going through difficult things. That doesn't take away from what you're going through and what you're feeling. And for me, the answer is always just talking to someone, talking to a friend, talking to a therapist, finding someone in a forum, talking to someone that I was supposed to have a baby. Like, I just find normalizing things to just be like such a blessing.
Look, we started this. I know because I wrote it down because I'm going to be using it at some point. You said, I'm allergic to secrets. And I think that's an incredibly powerful statement, especially in this kind of a situation, and actually really all fertility journeys. There's nothing that you did that was wrong. You're not at fault for your situation. You didn't cause it. Your husband didn't cause it. It just is. And why we keep these things inside, why we don't talk about them, or we haven't talked about them in the past. We're doing a little bit of a better job now, but why it has this like shroud over it. I don't know that any of us really know the answer, but the more you talk about it and the more we talk about it, the better we all feel, and we help the next person, right? The next person to feel a little bit less alone. So that's it. I mean, that is the gift of what you did, Shoshana, I am so grateful. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you wanna mention tonight before we go? Anything that you want to say to the I was supposed to have a baby community?
No, well, a guiding principle in my life is about the importance of community. I think that I think Judaism is built around community, which is why, like, I mean, everyone suffered during COVID, but like Judaism is meant to be observed in community, not on your own. And I really believe that community is the answer to just like so many things. And I would just urge anybody who is in search of community to really come here and to find it here. Anyone is welcome to reach out to me. I'm not a professional in any way, but I'm happy to listen. And thank you so much, because this is something I feel strongly about. And honestly, like I feel good that I shared. Like it felt right. I didn't force myself. It's been 15 years and I felt like I'm ready to share this now. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm honored that you felt comfortable being here and doing this. Look, sharing is not for everyone. It's definitely not. But every single time somebody shares, it means that you are reaching people who are sitting in the dark by themselves and feeling like no one could possibly understand what they're going through. And so I urge each of you, those of you who are sitting in the dark, find someone, find a local friend, community, family, or find social networks, us, and there are plenty of others. Find something, because you are very much, all of you are not alone. Shoshana, thank you again. I am going to link your handle so that people can reach out to you afterwards. And I'm just so grateful.
Okay,
I'm just so grateful.
you. Thank you so much, Aimee.
You're welcome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.